Do you want to walk 15,000 steps in about 3 hours? Or carry around 40 pounds of camera gear all throughout a film festival and take nearly 75 identical shots of the same logo? Perfect, because today I'm going to show you how I turned that terrible life decision into an animation.
What? It's big so proud. Tell your moms, kids, it's big so proud. What?
So last week I spent a few days volunteering for the video documentary team for the True False Film Festival here in Missouri. If you're not familiar with it, True False is a documentary film festival that basically takes over the entire downtown area for a few days. There's multiple theaters that run movies, there's pop-up venues, art installations, street performers. It's honestly a pretty wild environment to film in. I was working for the video team, so my job was to capture the festival as it was going on. That included filming some Q&As after the movie screenings, documenting the setup of all the, aesthetics, and grabbing those little moments around the festival that help drive the narrative for the documentary.
Sorry, I shouldn't say "op" like that.
Not the pass.
It would be a different kind of yell I'd be making.
Let's go in.
If you've ever been to True False, you know that the experience is pretty chaotic, in a good way though. People are running back and forth between theaters to try to catch the next film. There's just a bunch of volunteers out pretty much directing traffic. There's filmmakers all over the place doing interviews on the street, in the venues. And somewhere in the middle of all that, there's me and the rest of the documentary team trying to capture whatever we can. You gotta make sure that you're capturing everything, but not capturing everything. I also managed to see a couple of documentaries there, none of which made me cry. Absolutely none, not even a little bit.
They ask you how you are, you just have to say.
But when you're filming something like this, you start noticing some visual patterns and things that are repeating. Little visual details in the environment that kind of define the event. And at True False, there's one thing that you see everywhere. Posters, sign, badges, window stickers. And once I started noticing that logo everywhere, my brain just kind of flipped into creator mode. Because repetition like that is actually a really interesting opportunity in filmmaking. If you can find something that keeps repeating over and over and over again, you can really turn that into something bigger than just documentation. Instead of just filming everything at the True False Film Festival, I tried telling the story by filming the same thing. It was a True False circle logo, just in all the different environments that I found it in. And the idea was that if I filmed enough of these, then I could line them all up in post and turn it into something that I'm calling a match cut montage. This is basically where you cut in between shots of the same shape or composition, so the image appears to animate from place to place. And the cool part is that this doesn't just work at the film festival. This can work really anywhere that you're gonna have something repeating. You go walk around Manhattan and film every single Starbucks cup and the logo that you see on the floor, and maybe film a stop freaking littering commercial. You can film basketball hoops around the city, street signs, college logos. All you need is that one repeating visual idea. And in this case, I took about 75 of them. All right, if you want to try this, here's how I shot it. So once I committed to the idea, the mission became pretty simple. Find the logo, center it in the frame, and film it. Now, the rule I gave myself is that it had to be roughly centered in the same shot. So you could always take a little piece of paper and cover your camera to make sure everything in your viewfinder is lining up. But I was filming so much other stuff that I couldn't really do that. So I was okay with it not being 100% perfect, but it needed to be close enough so that later in editing, I can line them up and it doesn't feel so jerky when it switches from one to the other. Because if the logo's bouncing all over the frame, the whole illusion just kind of falls apart. So every time I spotted one on posters, on windows, on Queens, even on a bathroom once, I would stop, frame it up, and record about 4 seconds of that actual logo. Now, 4 seconds might sound random, but it gives you enough room when you're editing to find where you're actually the most stable. I don't know about you, but I'm not always handheld shooting things super stable. I try to hold it as still as I can, but out of those 4 seconds, I'll be able to get some frames out of it. Now, technically, I was using a gimbal for this, which sounds super professional, but honestly, most of the time, the gimbal was locked, and I was basically holding it like a slightly heavier camera. So picture me walking around the film festival with my gimbal, occasionally just stopping in the middle of all the pedestrian traffic to film a sticker on a trash can. Totally normal behavior. But see, here's one thing. Even when you try to film things consistently, humans are terrible at consistency. My head is probably not screwed on right. Sometimes I drift to the left, sometimes I drift to the right. Sometimes my head starts tilting like I'm actual geometry problem in your math textbook. Don't hurt my neck. Which meant that even though the idea was simple, I knew I was gonna have to do a lot of cleaning up in post. And when you're the actual editor on the video, that's okay. You can assign that work to yourself. But that's also why I filmed 75 clips. Like, the logo was everywhere, so it wasn't that hard to find 75 clips, but I needed to make sure I had enough so I could shorten them down to actually get a couple seconds worth of animation. You know, here's the secret to the match cut montage. It's not about perfection, it's about options. The more versions you shoot, the better the animation is gonna look. And once I had a bunch of logos from all around the film festival, that's when the work really started. Because now I have 75 slightly crooked shots that I have to turn into an animation, which means it's time to open up our good old friend Premiere Pro. All right, now we get to the part where this idea completely works or just falls apart and you just wasted 3 hours of your life. Right now we have 75 clips that are kind of centered, but not centered enough to become a magical animation. So the first step is really just to get everything into Premiere Pro. I dumped all the clips into a project and then brought them all down into a timeline. Once they're all in the timeline, it makes things easier. I could just select all of them and unlink, when I go to speed duration, unlink the percentage and the duration and change the duration down to about, I don't know, I felt 5 frames worked out well for me. Then select all your clips and then go up to sequence and close gaps so it pushes all of them together. Now what you can do is place one clip on the timeline and take the next clip and stack it on top of the previous one on a higher video layer. Then just temporarily lower the opacity of the clip so you can see through it, and this lets you see both logos at the same time. Once you can see both, now you can start adjusting the position and the scale and the size of the top logo until it lines up pretty well with the one underneath it. Then you can move it back and re-increase the opacity up to 100%. And remember earlier when I said that my head might not be screwed on right? Well, this is where I ended up paying for it. Sometimes I had to nudge the frame to the left, sometimes I had to nudge the frame to the right, and if, you know, I shot in too tight, I didn't have much room to work with on the edges. But again, once the logos line up, just increase that opacity back to 100 and move that clip back to its initial spot. Then you're on to the next clip, and then the next clip, and then the next clip, and then, oh yeah, the next clip, 75 times, if you got that many. So again, these are down to about 0.5 of a second, and I think my sequence was set to 24:30. It doesn't matter. I mean, you're just wanting them to pop up for a fraction of a second, just so your brain can register that it was the logo before the animation moves on to the next one. Once you start doing this for plenty of the logos, you'll see that if you play through, the logos are now snapping into that same exact spot, and you're getting that animation that we're talking about. And once that's all done, you have something that looks just like a fully planned out animation, even though that's a bunch of carefully aligned clips to the same logo. Now, some people are like, oh, why didn't you take pictures of it? Maybe that would have been easier to just take pictures. Well, to me, I want that little bit of movement, which is why I'm not making these down to 1 frame. I'm making them down to about 5 frames, because that little bit of movement to me breathes a lot of life into the animation. Speaking of breathing life into it, what else is going to add to that is going to be the sound. Now, 75 times, I don't want to hear that same click, 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 click. So what I am going to do is I'm going to take 2 sounds, one that's a click and one that's the click backwards. So it's chick, 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 chick. That's how, sound like a train, maybe? I don't know. Anyway, so it's going to be 2 different sounds going back and forth, and then I'm going to lower that volume down because, again, you know, I don't want it to sound so crazy and annoying for this amount of time. I'm gonna go ahead, add some risers, some tension into this animation as well. And then, you know, I ended up with this fun shot at the very end. One of the queens, her hat was in the shape of a Q, which was also in a circle, just like the logo. So I thought it would be, you know, a cute idea to end on her spinning around. So now everything's lined up and the clips are trimmed down and stitched together. And suddenly I have an animation that is lively and it really shows the story of the event that I was at, showing all the different locations. And what I like about this technique is nothing was actually animated. This was all done in camera with obviously some edits to straighten up my shakiness a little bit. There's no keyframes, there's no motion graphics, you know, but it looks like there is. It was just observation, repetition, and editing. And honestly, this kind of thing is everywhere if you start looking for it. Logos, street signs, coffee cups, which, come on, clean up after yourself. Anywhere you find the same type of imagery repeating, you can create this match cut montage, which means a lot of the time creativity isn't just about creating something from scratch. It's about noticing what's actually there and then deciding to do something with it. And in this case, there was tons of the same logo all over the place, and it was great because it really represented the brand. And you know, that's the kind of creative thinking that we love around here, because good ideas don't have to be complicated, they just have to be noticed. And if you end up using this match cut montage to do something with it, let me know, and I would love to personally see it. What's something else that you could use in a match cut montage? You could do this for all kinds of things. If you liked the video, give us a thumbs up or a thumbs down if you didn't like the video. I don't really care. I mean, maybe YouTube is gonna tell people that if you gave us a thumbs down, don't watch it for other people. That'd be pretty rude of you. Are you a rude person? If you made it this far, you're probably not a rude person. You're probably a pixel pal. So instead of hitting that thumbs down, hit the thumbs up. And then you can go ahead and tell your mom, tell your kids, Pixel Pals.
It's Pixel Pals.
Pixel Pals roll a scene, every cut's a brand.
What?
Lights, camera, action, gotta keep it in demand. Rigs run smooth, view from the heights we climb. The opposite of poker, you can't beat the one of a kind.